Duran Premium Cigars, one of the fastest growing boutique cigar companies, providing smokers a portal into the old Cuban tradition of perfect balance and the lost art of progressive flavor construction. Roberto Pelayo Duran began his career in tobacco over 2 decades ago in Havana, where his reputation grew within Cuban circles. The creation of Duran Premium Cigars has given Roberto the platform to introduce a series of cigars that offer the same quality, construction, and detail which he perfected while in Cuba. Brands include the ultra-premium Roberto P. Duran Premium Cigar Series, Azan Cigars, Nea, and Baracoa. Duran Cigars uses a seed-to-humidor approach, as all tobacco is grown on their farms and rolled in their factory in Esteli, Nicaragua. Rollers have been carefully chosen to carry out Roberto's precise method to ensure progressive flavor in each cigar. Duran Cigars invites you to make their premium your standard. Experience the world through the eyes of an icon with the new Macanudo Inspirado line. Created for a global palate, Macanudo Inspirado defies convention. Handcrafted with the world's finest tobaccos, Inspirado delivers a unique international smoking experience. Find Inspirado Orange at fine tobaccos everywhere, and Inspirado Black online and in your favorite catalogs. Ready to be inspired? Check out Macanudo Inspirado now at macanudo.com. CAO has brought you iconic cigars over the years. Brasilia, Italia, La Traviata, done in a playful nature with a unique twist. Travel to the exciting world of CAO and back in just under an hour with any of the groundbreaking CAO World Blends. Test the boundaries of style with new age brands in the 95 rated Flathead. Honor the past with new classics like Pilon. Treat your palate array of flavors with Soulfire and Moon Trance. At CAO, the experiences are limitless. So what's your next move?
Hey, Paul, what's up?
What's up, Mark?
Did you hear about the new cigar that's coming out?
Which one is that? There's like 800 new ones every week.
The one with the Connecticut broadleaf wrapper.
Oh, really? I love Connecticut broadleaf. Who makes it?
I think it's Nicaraguan.
So Nicaraguan binder and filler, or it's made in a factory in Nicaragua?
I always have to Google these, and it's taking me like an hour to find out what it is.
If this is a frequent conversation with your cigar buddies, look no further than Stogie Geeks News, the only cigar news podcast on the internet. Will Cooper, the man behind cigar-coop.com, and Paul Asadorian from the Stogie Geeks produce a weekly show covering the latest cigar news, new blends, cigar manufacturer announcements, and more. Subscribe to the video version on YouTube, or get the audio version in your favorite podcast catcher. Head on over to stogienews.tv to subscribe today.
Welcome back to the Stogie Geek Show. This is episode 207 on Halloween. Will Cooper coming at you from Studio C in North Carolina. We have Mark and the team at the Villiger North America Studios manning the controls. And we have our 2 special guest co-hosts tonight, Dave Burke of Cigar Jukebox and Hector Alfonso of Espinosa Cigars. In just a little news update, we have an internal Slack. We have this internal chat system called Slack, and I just got a picture of the Asadorian family on Halloween, and Paul and his beautiful family. I assume Paul might put it up on social media, but Paul Paul just went above and beyond this year as far as costumes this year. I want to say he's some sort of a Grim Reaper character, but I'm probably not doing the justice there. But Paul and his absolutely beautiful family. I can't ask for a better guy to work with than Paul. I drive him crazy, but absolutely he's just first class all the way. So hopefully, great family. Enjoy that time, Paul, because my kids are older and I'm already missing it. Anyway, we're back and we're gonna do a segment. We'll see how this goes. You may want to put your seatbelts on, folks, and hopefully this is gonna be hot topics. And this was Hector's idea. So I'm going to blame Hector, but I thought it was a really good idea. Where
we couldn't call it things. We couldn't call it things that piss me off because it's not my show.
No, but we're basically going to get Hector fired up. We're going to get Mr. No, we're going to pick. There's been a lot of things going on in the cigar industry right now, and we're basically just going to do a segment where we're going to talk about a few of these things, and we're going to get some real candid thoughts on this, and hopefully we won't piss anyone off either. But so I'm gonna start this one off right now, and Hector, you and I have talked about this. Dave, I know we talked about this too on Cigar Jukebox. So right now, there's been some easing of the trade restrictions with Cuba. So now, and I just came back from Cuba, as you know, in August. And,
Dave's laughing. Dave's laughing already.
Dave's laughing already. Yeah, I can see he knows where this goes. But I came back. I went to Cuba, and like I said, my thing was more of an educational thing. And there's a few articles on Cigar Coop where it wasn't meant to. I had a great experience in Cuba. I'm going to say that. But I recognize too that the opening of the there's been now a further easement of the trade restrictions where now anyone going abroad can bring back Cuban cigars. And this has now kind of set off an interesting reaction in the marketplace. I'd say it's a somewhat of a split, but I'm going to say it's more negative, I've heard, than positive. So what are your thoughts, Hector, on that?
I think it's crap. I'll tell you why I think it's crap. I was on the Dojo show last year sometime, and we were talking about Cuba, and part of my day job, I work in the intelligence biz, and my sectors are South America and Central America and the Caribbean. So I not only do I have a personal, I have a personal history with what the Cuban situation is because of my parents being leaving prior to right at the beginning of the revolution. The whole thing with Cuba bothers the hell out of me. But when I was on the show with him, I told Eric I was going over some facts, how and some personal things that bother me. You going to Cuba didn't bother me. You know why? You weren't run out of the island. You weren't told to leave. They didn't seize any of your things. You went to Cuba because you know what? You went on a learning experience. And Americans, as a people, we're explorers and we like to go places. And where else in your lifetime are you going to get a chance to go into a time machine? Because that's pretty much what you did. You came into Miami, you flew out of Miami, and you flew on a time machine into Havana. And when you landed in Havana, it was 1959, or maybe 1960, depending on the cars that you saw. It was a time machine. You saw a country that has no infrastructure, a country that's been following this bearded monster for 55, 56 years, 57 years in January. Now, that aside, when I was on Dojo Show, we talked about Cuba and the Cuban cigars and the FDA and the impact. And I said, wouldn't it be funny? And wouldn't it be just a slap in the face for those of us in the cigar industry if Cuba got a special dispensation and we're immune to the FDA and their rules and their bylines? And even though this is not a complete dispensation, the fact that you can bring in Cuban cigars now, while they are putting their foot on our necks and trying to nail our asses to the wall and make it almost impossible for any new cigar to come in, and for us to come up with all this paperwork and all these photos and all this crap that we have to come up to meet their deeming regulations is not only unfair, it's stupid. It's absolutely stupid. And it's just I can't decide whether it's this president trying to put the final touches on his legacy, or if maybe he has a master plan that he figures that that by doing this he'll take the knees out from the FDA. I don't know which one it is, but I know that it's ridiculous.
So let me ask a couple of follow-up questions on that. Do you think so? Juan Cancel, first of all, I'll make a comment. Juan Cancel made a great comment last week on the show. He said, as Juan did, and he really posed this in a way that I hadn't thought of it, but I did think of it. But the way he posed it and phrased it was perfect. He said that basically the U.S. market, the cigars being, made by U.S.-based companies or U.S. distribution type companies, are being subject to more regulations, and cigars that basically we still technically have a trade embargo with are being subject to less regulations in a lot of ways.
They're not getting when they come in. The government's not getting any piece of that pie.
Yep.
When they talked about easing these restrictions with Cuba, and even though we know that it's going to take more than an executive order to ever lift the embargo, how do you make nice with a country, which is what this administration tried to do? They're trying to make nice with a country, and hey, we're gonna slack off. We're gonna slack some of these restrictions. We're gonna try to open dialogue, and then how do you tell them that their number one export or their number one or number two export can't be brought into this country? Because that's what was going to happen. Say that the embargo. Say that they make all the ice they can in the world. You can't bring your cigar in because there wasn't a single Cuban cigar for sale as of February 15th, 2007 in the United States. Am I wrong?
There was not.
So that's where I stand on that. I mean, I just I find it I can't comprehend it. But you know what? It's par for the course for the way things have been in these last couple of years.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Right now, do you feel that? And here, I'm going to give you my point of view on this. I'll answer this first, and I'll hear your point. So, a lot of retailers are saying this is going to hurt my business. I'm taking the approach that I think that the boutique smoker, I don't think they're going to go chase down the Cubans. I just don't. They may go get some, but I don't think it's going to change overall buying patterns that much. I think the more of the Macanudo type of smoker, I could see that. But I also see it.
It's not about stealing. It's not about them cutting into our market share. Because at the end of the day, they're going to come back to us. The problem is it's not fair. It's unfair. And that's the argument. There's no argument against that. It's unfair. Whether it's one box or two boxes, and all it takes is some guy to come back with 20 boxes in a bag, because that's what's going to happen. The one guy, they were sneaking them at first, and then, you had your $100 limit, and now, there's going to be, and I'm sure it's going to be somebody's cousin that I know. They're going to go to Cuba and come back with a duffel bag full of Cuban cigars. And then what? And then he's going to sell them, and he's going to, he's going to make money on the side. The retailers aren't going to see that money. The brick and mortars aren't going to see that money. The government's not going to see that money. They're not getting taxed on it. It's ridiculous, but it's unfair. It's just, and I know life is not fair, because I'm sure somebody will text me and say, hey, life's not fair. I know life's not unfair. I know life's not fair. I know life sucks. But this is crap. How are you? You're trying to make nice with this government, and you're doing it on the backs of the cigar industry and the 300,000 people that they employ in the United States, in the Caribbean, and in Central America. There's no reason for that. There's no rhyme or reason for that.
So I'll ask one more question on this, and I'll go over to Dave. So and I'm hearing this. Do you think that this is something that we now need to start getting politically active on, in terms of maybe having a lobbyist or something start to represent the industry on this? Because it's not something I'm hearing. I keep hearing FDA, and we're going to get to FDA, and no doubt we need to focus on that. But is this something now that maybe our trade associations should start absolutely looking at this issue?
Look, our trade associations have their hands full just dealing with the first set of nightmarish rules with the deeming rules. I think, believe it or not, this is great that this happened. Not because I'm applauding it or I think it's fantastic. I think it's great because it's stirring controversy within with the legislators. That, and then that second debacle of the cigars for soldiers. Those two things are starting. That's going to stir a little bit of trouble. It's unpopular. Politicians is all about being popular. You want to be popular. What's that rule? There are two things you don't ever want to see get made: sausage and laws. These guys know that whole Tobacco Control Act to keep cigars and tobacco out of kids' hands. It meant well, but look what it's doing to our industry. But this is a very unpopular move. This is a very, very unpopular move, and the cigars for soldiers thing is even more unpopular. And I think that this can only help us at the end.
There's been, I'll tell you, we do a lot of metrics on Cigar Coop and Stogie Geeks. We're very much looking at how the content we put out, how it's hitting the audience. The article, when we didn't break the news on the confirmation. We kind of basically reported that news, that the FDA actually gave a confirmation for the first time on no donations for the troops. Horrible decision. It's horrible, but it's one thing that's hitting mainstream media, and that part may help in the bigger picture.
I agree with you. That's my point. That's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah. Plus the fact that they're egotistical, this whole maniacal thing that, what was their response to the lawsuit the other day? 46 different or 46 different denied. denied. They're denying this or denying that. The only thing they didn't use was the neener. I know you are, but what am I defense? I mean, it was awful. It's awful. These guys are zealots. They're absolutely they're anti-tobacco zealots, and they don't give a shit how many people are going to be put out of work or how many people are going to suffer. They don't care. They're trying to push their anti-tobacco legislation and their holier than thou thing down our throats. I'm a grown man. I'm 50 years old. If I want to have a cigar, I should be able to have a cigar. It's okay though. I mean, if my knees give out and I need, or if I get epilepsy and I need medical marijuana, there's 10 states I can go take care of that. But I can't get a Robusto anywhere. Never once have I seen a kid walk up to me. I've had kids ask me to buy cigarettes for them. I told them to go fuck off. But never once have I had a kid walk up to me and ask me to borrow my cutter. Because he's going to have a torpedo or a bellicoso. Never once. They're so out of touch. They're supposed to be they're a legislative branch. They're an enforcement instrument as well. They're a joke. They have, one of the first things you learn when you're investigating any kind of crime, you want guys on the inside who know how that business works. They have no idea how this business works, or if they do, they just don't care. They just don't care.
Exactly. Dave, any? I'll give you a chance to either weigh in on this, or I'll even put you on the spot if you want to throw a hot topic out there.
Well, I have a hot topic for later that I just talked about this morning with cigar surgeon John up in Canada. I'll save that hot topic for later. But I was thinking of this. I talked about this with Steve Saka came on the other day to do his guest DJ show, and we were talking about this, and he was sort of. And this, I don't know. I mean, this might rile up people like Catfish and June that do great stuff with Cuban cigars. But coming from a country where you could get Cuban and non-Cuban cigars, I mean, they're regulated the same. A lot of people here are starting to gravitate more towards the non-Cuban, and I'm wondering, is all the fervor around smokers wanting to get Cuban cigars? Is it all hype?
It's a forbidden fruit. It's the forbidden fruit, Dave. It's the forbidden fruit. You marry a blonde, but you want a redhead. You marry a redhead, but you want a brunette. You want what you can't have, and that's what it is, and that's what it's been for 56 years. That's whatever the amount of time is that the embargo's been in effect. It's because it's a forbidden fruit, and people's butts are they're itching because they want it. At the end of the day, they're going to go back. Because most of them don't burn well. They don't draw. They're not using fermented tobacco. They're making them as they're shipping them as fast as they're making them. Plus the fact that they're bringing in tobacco from Nicaragua anyway, because they can't keep up with the demand now. Oh, am I not supposed to say that? That's supposed to be a secret or something like that? Come on, man. I'm sorry, Dave. Forgive me.
No, okay. I just like lighting the wick on Hector over there. But no, no, it's just because I was talking to Steve, and he's just sort of saying the American market now, with Nicaraguan tobacco, with the strength in the body, a lot of the Cuban cigars won't be able to live up with that anyway, except for maybe like a select handful. So I'm just wondering, driving this need for the Cuban cigars, how much of it is the tobacco and how much of it is just hype around, getting a Cuban cigar?
Look, Eric uses a great analogy, and I think Rocky used it the other day when you were interviewing him, Coop. Coors beer, okay? I wouldn't grill sausages in Coors, and I wouldn't boil hot dogs in Coors beer. But when it came out, people wanted it, and why did they want it? Because you couldn't get it east of the Mississippi. What is a big deal about east of the Mississippi? In the United States, a third of the population lives west of the Mississippi, and there's 2/3 of the land. The population of the United States, 2/3 of the population of the United States is east of the Mississippi. They couldn't get it. People wanted it. They made a great movie about it, about bringing Coors, bootlegging it. Then once it was here, after a while, it faded. And the same thing will happen. The problem is that the brick and mortars aren't going to get a chance to sell them. And guys who smoke Cuban cigars or who are fascinated by wanting to have a Cuban cigar are going to pay an extravagant amount of money for these cigars. And at the end of the day, they're going to be butthurt.
Interesting. So I'm going to switch gears. And I'm going to change the topic here. And Hector, you could feel free, and I'll speak for Dave too on this topic. And I'll speak for Dave Dave doesn't know I'm going to ask this. So Hector, guys like me and Dave and Paul and a lot of other people, we critique what you guys do for a living. How do you feel about that in terms of guys like me who we talk about cigars and we critique them?
Look,
what are your thoughts on that?
Here's my thought on that. Yes, it's a free country. All right? And that's number one. Your opinion, protected by the Constitution, your voice, all of that. I'm going to tell you something. I've made cigars. I've had cigars that are fantastic. I've had cigars that are bad. I've had cigars that are middling to good. I've had all types of cigars. We've made cigars here that have rated very well. We've rated cigars that have rated good. We've had a couple that have rated excellent. That's great. That's fantastic. All that's when a cigar when we make a cigar and it gets reviewed by somebody, I don't care I don't care what the rating is. I just want it to be a respectful review. Hey, if you're those two guys from Discerning Palates, the two young guys from Discerning Palates?
The Developing Palates, Aaron and June.
I talked to those guys at the show, and they were telling me what I thought. I said, look, you guys are two of you. When you guys review a cigar, you know what's in your wheelhouse. You know what kind of cigar you like. Why would you review a cigar that that cigar's flavor profile is not in your wheelhouse? Right off the bat, you're gonna have a bad experience with the cigar, which is only gonna lead to a negative connotation when you write it. If you don't have the palate for it, if it's not in your wheelhouse, if you don't like Connecticut, you shouldn't review a Connecticut cigar. If you don't like strong cigars, if you don't like anything higher than a medium, then don't review anything that's higher, because I'm sure when you get them, you call me or you send me an email. Hey, I got this cigar. What's the flavor profile here? You're a one-man show, so it's not a fair comparison. But hey, it's going to be like this. It's like that. It's like this. It's got notes of this, notes of that. It's going to be medium to full. If you don't, just right. And if that's the first one, try to review cigars that are in your wheelhouse. All right. Secondly, if you're going to write a review, be respectful. That's all. That's all I ask. Be respectful. Hey, you know what? I didn't like it. The cigar's in my wheelhouse. I love Connecticut's, but this cigar didn't do it for me. Well, you know what? Great. It didn't do it. I'm sorry that it didn't do it for you. We have all the excuses in the world. Well, maybe you got a bad one. It's man-made. Maybe it wasn't stored right. There's a whole. Let's say that all of those things are not the problem. The cigar was in a perfect atmosphere, perfect environment. It drew well. It burned well. It just didn't taste good. As long as you write the review and you're respectful about it, what can I say? It's not for everybody. I've had cigars that I don't like, that people who I respect their palates have told me, man, this is really good. And I say to myself, oh, I don't say it, but I don't bash it. And that's my problem. I don't like the fact that people will use this medium to bash. And then even worse than bashing is when they're butt sucking. That's even worse. Enough of the sucking already, we say down here. All right, we know you love the guy. Can you, try to not walk so close to his ass that if he comes to a complete stop, you put your head up it. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm going with that.
Exactly. My pet peeve is, and again, there's a lot of great reviewers out there, but the one that kind of, when I see the reviews start off with, I don't like big ring gauge cigars. Immediately, you lost me. You lost me with the review. The review's over when I see that. Even if they turn around and say they liked it, I get lost because I can't. There's a prejudice in there. I'm gonna my point of view is there's a lot I like. There's a lot that's in my wheelhouse. Now, is every Espinosa cigar in my wheelhouse? I'm gonna be honest with you. No, it's definitely not. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. There isn't. There's some that have hit me better than others. So, it's like I said. That's I try to, like I said, keep that balance in terms of, and I think Paul too. The same thing. We try to be we have a wide range. I think, which is why I think we feel we can cover that wide range. But if you're only a Lancero smoker, then you should just review Lanceros. That's just my opinion.
I've been thinking about opening up a website where we review the reviewers, but I can't get any funding for that. I might start a GoFundMe page. So
I'd like to see that.
But seriously, I mean, if you know what you like, you know what's in your wheelhouse, that certain manufacturers make a cigar that you're going to enjoy. you know that some manufacturers make a cigar that you're not going to enjoy. Why would you review it, especially if you have a couple of guys on your staff that you can dole them out? That's what bothers me. Look, I forgot who it was who told me. I don't know if it was Jonathan. And I'm telling you, I've met some of you guys. Some of you guys are great. I mean, just really knowledgeable guys. And Jonathan's like, hey, you know, this guy gave me a cigar to review. I smoked it and I called him, look, I didn't like it. I'm not going to review it because I don't want to smash you. That's pretty classy. That's above and beyond.
Yeah. I mean, we tend to focus more on there are times Paul and I have had to, we have to sometimes talk about the less positive. We do. We can't love it. You know, Steve Saka says, if you like every cigar, you're not going to love any of my cigars. So, I mean, that's kind of what we get at. But we try to point out some of the positives. And at least I look at reviewing as I want to educate more on the cigar, less on my flavor palette. Because it's
my new thing now is my hashtag consider the source.
Yep. Amen. Dave, anything on that?
Well, it was interesting because I did a show with Dave Garofalo from Two Guys, and he likes a lot of cigars that aren't kind of in the strong, full body, things like that. And he'll just say up front, I can't comment on that cigar because it's full body and I don't smoke full body. And I guess for Cigar Authority, for them, because they have the three people, they can still have a cigar and he can say, well, that's too full body for me, so I didn't give it a go.
He doesn't like it. He can give it to Barry. Yeah. Barry will smoke a tire. I mean, for Christ's sakes, Barry will smoke a radial tire. I mean, he likes a stronger cigar. You have a couple guys you can pass it off on. I completely agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, and I had this talk with when I had Sensei on from Dojo, and I think sometimes for online media, and I don't know, I mean, I might be, but I think sometimes people get the idea that you're not a critic unless you bash something. There's this sort of idea that, like, if you're too positive about cigars, then you're not being honest. Or so I think there's that view out there from people that, well, you have to bash it in order to be a critic, quote unquote, and I don't agree with that.
Yeah, we don't, cigars don't have to, it doesn't have to be Siskel and Ebert, it doesn't have to be Siskel and Ebert. I like the Dojo story because I think it's a great story. You have the followers reviewing, now the son reviews as well. Well, that's great. I mean, you know what? And we've gotten really good ratings on there. Some of them we've done real well. Some of them we've done well enough. I'm fine. I look at it this way. We have a good market. Eric is the kind of guy that, he believes in the product. Any cigar that leaves here, we know is a good cigar because we believe in that cigar. It's not for everybody. And, if it does well or if it doesn't do great, but yet you're respectful in the review, hey, it wasn't for me. Or if the cigar had a burn issue, of course, hey, this cigar had a burn issue. Hey, the cigar had a plug. But you know what? If the cigar had a plug, you can send us an email. Hey, bro, I bought a cigar at the store, it had a plug in it, or the wrapper came off. Hey, I'll send you on. If the cigar is bad, the cigar is bad. But right now, I know that, and not to be that guy, but right now the stuff's coming out of here, the stuff that we're making here, it's like a summer day in Miami. We're in the 90s. Everything's in the 90s here, man. We're doing great, and we're happy about that. Have we gotten better? Sure. I think that as we've matured as a company, as we've learned, as we've gone with what's selling in the market, as we have more access to more tobacco, our cigars get more complex and they get, they're more diverse. We would have who would have thought that 5 years ago we would have had a Candela cigar? Nobody. So it's great for me what's good for us as a factory, not just for me personally, is that not only our cigars we're getting good ratings, the ones we're making for other people are getting good ratings. The protocol's getting protocol. I saw the surgeon from Cigar, it was a Cigar Federation, surgeon from the Cigar Federation. He did a thing on YouTube. He gave that protocol Lancero a 97. That's outrageous. I mean,
he's a tough reviewer too, by the way. He's not one that throws out a high score.
A 97. I mean, that's the kind of cigar that you want to go over there and beat these guys over the head and take it back and we sell it, But Daddy Mac's done well. La Huala's done well. The cigars that we made, we made a cigar. We made a cigar for JR. We made a Connecticut cigar. It got a 91 in one of these other sites. Yeah, that's a cigar that we were very happy to get that as well. I mean, it's not just cigars that we make for us. We want anything that comes out of Lozona to do well.
Excellent.
Just be
Dave,
respectful.
I'm going to move this segment along. Dave, do you have a hot topic you wanted to throw out there?
My quick hot topic and something to think about, and it'll get Hector going as well, which is just fun in and of itself.
You should rename the segment. Get me going. All right, go ahead, sir.
But it's plain packaging, and it's here. It's going to come into effect in Canada, and that's, for example, for people that don't know. So you take this cigar here, this Saints and Sinners, and instead of having this band on it, it's going to have like an olive band that's just olive green, and in white type it'll say, Tatuaje Saints and Sinners. That's it. So like the Warheads, it would take all the banding off, and there would just be a green band that said Warhead 2. And for me, it's a hot topic for me because it's saying that it's like what you were saying, Hector, smoke as much marijuana as you want. But, far be it to actually show the band on a cigar, because that's going to be the end of the world. And it's further
They're coddling
something. Yeah.
They're coddling us. They're coddling us like if we're babies and we don't know any better. We can't make our own decisions. We can't trust our own judgments. That bothers me.
Because,
Totally.
I mean, and for you, Will, and for you, Hector, I mean, it's already coming over to Canada. I think Surgeon said this morning that probably looking kind of second or third quarter of 2017, plain packaging is something to start thinking about, because the FDA, if they've already opened the door to regulations, is something that might come to the U.S. in the near future.
Exactly.
Thanks, Dave.
Hector summed up my thoughts exactly on that topic. Want to wrap it up. Hector, do you want to throw a hot topic out for us? Because
you left me. Got like 3 of them here, man. We can't. We don't. All right. Well, that Cigars for Soldiers debacle. We talked about that. Hot topic wise, we covered the FDA and we covered the Cuban cigar thing. We covered the Cigars for Soldiers thing. I've got a little one that bothers me a little bit, but it's not one that I guess you guys would really be interested in. It's just, self-aggrandizers, and the 2 things that bother me the most. I think there's nothing better than when you give your cigar to somebody in the industry and they smoke your cigar, and you take one of theirs back and you enjoy it. It's nice reciprocation. But I saw lately at this show, especially, I saw a couple of guys that, you handed them a cigar, they handed you a cigar, and they took the band off. Oh, well, why'd you take the band off? Oh, I don't want to stir any trouble. What kind of crap is that? That bothers me a little bit. And then I still have the other one thing that drives me nuts, Coop, is I did an event the other day, and Dave, you don't know, I'm not the luckiest guy at events. If there's 100 guys at that event and 99 of them are the nicest guys in the world, the one satellite is the one that attracts, that he gets tone on me right away. And I had a guy who smoked one of our cigars, and he walked over and he goes, I taste leather. I said, okay, that taste I've never tasted in cigars, leather. But he said, but it's not just leather, it's Italian leather. So I kind of I did everything I could. I kind of clenched everything, and I didn't want to say anything to him. And he picked up a cigar off the tray there, and he smelled it through the cellophane. And he goes, it's Nicaraguan, right? And I said, well, the cellophane is. Yes, the cellophane is Nicaraguan. Coop knows, man. Coop knows I suffer with these things. But I don't have anything else, man. I don't have anything else.
I'll kind of get with that one. I do want to weigh in on that one. There's a balance that we have as writers, broadcasters, where I think we try to paint a picture in terms of, I heard someone say basically there's only salty, sweet, sour, bitter, and I get that part. I do get that. But I think sometimes, I do think sometimes we try to paint a more detailed picture of it. But I also think there's a point where it goes too far, and then what happens is, and I've seen this with my writing, and I've been guilty of going too far as well. Then someone who is smoking that cigar doesn't get that, and now they feel like they're not qualified to smoke a cigar. And that's, I think, the problem with some of these crazy, when you go a little too overboard, like with Italian leather, I think now you're it's overdoing it, where I don't think I think it's doing more harm than good, is my opinion.
How many couches have that guy bit down on, or how many times has somebody put a shoe in that guy's mouth? Italian leather?
Right.
Really? And I had
Right.
I read a review not too long ago. I mean, I hope I don't get jammed up on this, but I counted 24 different tastes in that review. In my opinion, I think the cigar must have fallen in that person's grocery bag, and he picked up all the different, all these different vegetables and things, because there's just, there's no way a cigar has that many. And you're right. I think it makes smokers feel, I don't want to say, I think maybe a little inadequate. Well,
Right.
I'm happy, but I'm not tasting any of this, and I'm not tasting that. What do you taste? And I always tell them the same thing. Do you like it? That's the best taste in the world. I try to do two things. I try to make them feel better because they read a review that that they can't, it doesn't correlate. And then the second thing I always say, I try to have people retrohale. Eric's huge on the retrohale, and I don't know if you retrohale. I don't know if Dave does. I know Coop does, and you try to teach them how to retrohale. A lot of them have a little trouble at first, but when they do, it completely changes their cigar experience. That's the only two things I try to do. Yeah, I'll talk blends with you, and and sometimes you get guys who don't know a lot about tobacco, and they'll ask you 1,000 questions. And depending on the guy, I'm not that bad. I mean, I'll talk to the person, but it's the one who thinks he knows more than you, or the one who, or in the case of the guy who's telling you what's in the cigar that it's not in there because you were an integral part of that cigar being made. Those are the guys that just make me, they make me want to drink and run for the door, But and I'm sure Dave, if you get a chance, Coop will tell you that story offline. But it's just one of those things, I think the reviews are important. The reviews are important because a lot of when I worked in retail for a while. When we went through the recession here and the economy took a nosedive, and our mayor balanced the budget of his employees on his back, we were short. At the time, I was short $35,000 a year. I mean, because there was no overtime anymore, and a lot of things where the salary was cut back. So I got a gig working at a cigar store in Miami, Salud Havana, and I worked at that store for a while. And while I worked there, December, every year, the 3 years that I worked there, every year in December, some guy came in either with the magazine or photocopied Cigar Aficionado's top 25 list, wanting to try the cigars that were on the list. And we may have carried some. We didn't carry all of them. Obviously, the Cubans were on that. We wouldn't have the Cubans in the store. And I asked one guy, I said, well, why do you want to try that? He goes, well, Cigar Aficionado says it's the top 25. I got to try it. So, and that's why I believe that lists and ratings are good. I think it's good because it stirs interest in cigars that you might normally not want to smoke, or you might not have heard of. And I've talked to Coop about this on many occasions. I believe that there's incredible regionalism in tobacco. There's some cigar manufacturers that are big in certain areas. The big ones are big everywhere. But I'm talking about the smaller boutique, the boutique guys. We're big in certain spots. We're good in Florida, and we have a good footprint in the Midwest, and we're huge in the New York, New Jersey, and the Philadelphia area, Pennsylvania area. But there's some places, in California. But then there are some places that we're not quite there. Texas is a growing market for us. Some guys have heard of us, some guys have not. Having that rating that we had last year in CA's top 25 was wonderful for us because it gave us a little name recognition. So yeah, lists are good, reviews are good, But like all good things, there's no need to drag anybody through the mud. If you didn't like the cigar, you didn't like the cigar. If you're eloquent enough to write a review, you're eloquent enough to say that you didn't like it without being a douche about it.
I want to make one comment, then I'm going to turn it over to Dave. Funny thing is, there's a guy in the industry who doesn't get along with another guy in the industry. I don't want to give the names out. Okay,
You're a lot of guys.
Okay, so I'll say these two people are I would say they would not be invited over each other's houses. They would not hang out in a cigar shop and smoke together. Okay, so the person in the industry, he was asking me once if I had person one was asking me if I had smoked person two's cigar, and I know full well that person one didn't like person two. So basically, I had, and I liked person two's cigar quite a bit. And he was, so I started hemming and hawing. And it is a conversation I was having. And finally, person one tells me, he goes, you liked it, didn't you? And I said, yeah. And he goes, I liked it too. so that's just my two thoughts. That's my 2 cents on that. Dave,
Look,
and before we wrap up the segment, I'll give you a chance to respond to this hot topic.
Oh, no, I mean, I guess it's like, and I say this at every guest DJ show, that the great thing about cigars is like with music, there's so much diversity, you can never try anything, but it's always great to try something new, and you're going to gravitate to what you like. So I guess with cigars, like I'm always looking to try new stuff and just keep an open mind, I think. Like, because you hear people that'll say, like, well, I'll never smoke anything that's not a Cuban, or you hear people say, I won't smoke this certain brand. I mean, I would say just keep an open mind and give it a go. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But I mean, I never bash people on what they like because it's personal taste. And if you like it and I don't, it doesn't matter. You're still having a good time with a cigar. Like that's all that really matters.
Agree.
Coop, there are guys, not just forget about reviewers and bloggers and so on. We're not talking about that. I mean, I know even amongst yourselves, a lot of you don't get along, and manufacturers, a lot of them don't get along as well. They try to be civil to each other, and I think that's great. But I don't think anybody here in our place smokes more cigars made by other people than me. And
I agree.
I do it not just because like Jack Taranya just relaunched. I smoked Jack cigar. I wanted to try, and I liked it. Willie is a friend of mine. Willie, the H-Town from Willie, that he great. The Willie, the Miami, the Jerez de Miami, fantastic. Risty, who I don't know, but I was turned on the cigar, smoked it. Casa Cuevas, Gabby Alvarez. I smoked his cigar. Great cigar. Great cigar. I like smoking stuff that's new because from what's out there and what's different than what you have, you get ideas for your own, for future lines. Maybe that's a moot point now because if they have their way, there will be nothing new. But that's why I've always smoked everything else, everybody else's stuff. I love my stuff, but I love the stuff. I love my stuff and the stuff that we make and the stuff Eric blends. I love all the stuff that comes out of here. But I do like to try what's out there because it's a good barometer of what the market, which way the market's going.
And that's going to be a perfect segue into our next segment where we're going to talk to Dave and Hector about what they've been smoking. So stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this next segment.